So the next one is called Feedback Loops, and this sounds like an amazing project. But for this, I would like to invite the project manager to introduce the piece herself. And this is Alina Ivan, who is a researcher at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience from King's College, London. She works on the RADAR-CNS study, which looks at ways to track and manage depression using wearable devices. She will tell us more about this, of course. She's zooming in all the way from the UK, and we're happy to have her and the whole team as part of this year's festival. So, Alina, where are you? Are you behind me? Yes, you are. Hello. Hi, how are you?
Hello, yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. And thank you for joining us for this year's edition of Science in the City. So,
thank you for having us.
Tell us a bit about this project. So we don't know anything at all about it. It just sounds like an incredible project.
Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, just to say, my name is Alina Ivan, and I'm the creative producer for Feedback Loops. And I'm incredibly excited to share this performance with you for the first time ever. Myself and our team of artists, scientists, and researchers have been looking forward to this very moment the whole year. So yeah, let me tell you a little bit about the project. Feedback Loops is a story of the mind and the body. A story that aims to give life to real, honest human experiences. Experiences that are sometimes invisible, misunderstood, and hard to put into words. And to some of these experiences, you will be able to relate. But to others, you may not. But you might be able to put yourself into other people's shoes. You probably know already that what you're about to watch is a dance performance. We were wondering, what's the best way to communicate a message when words are not enough? And dance is one of the most visceral, primal ways to express feelings, thoughts, ideas, experiences. So that's why we've chosen dance as one of the mediums. But so does music. Music has a similar role. But the music in Feedback Loops is going to be rather atypical. Let's put it like this. So the dancer is not actually going to be performing to the music itself. The music is going to be generated by her own body, which sounds really strange, but I'm going to explain in a minute. So what's going to happen is that she is going to wear a device, this one precisely, which is a wearable device called the Empatica E4. It's a medical device which tracks movement, pulse, and also sweating. So all these different biometrics are going to feed into an algorithm, which in turn is going to transform the data into a musical piece. Now, I completely appreciate if some of you are worried at this stage, because it sounds like it could be quite random. And I do promise it's not going to sound like a million nails going down a chalkboard, because that is going to make all of us very unhappy for the next half an hour and possibly after as well. To some extent, the music is going to be influenced by the narrative that we've understood based on conversations with the people whose experiences we are trying to portray as part of the piece. So there's going to be an element of randomness, which means that every time Feedback Loops is going to take place, the music is going to sound different. But at the same time, the music is going to be in keeping with people's stories and narratives.
Fantastic.
So to tell you a little bit about the study itself, so RADAR-CNS stands for Remote Assessment of Disease and Relapse in Central Nervous System Disorders. I've been working on it for the past 3 years as part of a larger international consortium, and the aim is to see how we can track symptoms of depression, epilepsy and multiple sclerosis using these type of wearable devices, which can provide continuous objective data about someone's, say, sleep or heart rate or physical activity over longer periods of time, which can then be combined with more traditional measures such as questionnaires and also with people's accounts to paint a picture of how someone's symptoms changes over time. So we want to see exactly what happens when people feel good and what happens when people don't feel so good. For example, with depression, when someone becomes depressed, their sleep pattern might be influenced by this. They might be sleeping more or less. And we want to see exactly when that is happening, because people might be able in the future, knowing that what the early signs look like, they might be able to break the loop and act with foresight and do something to prevent this. So this is the whole idea of it. But now that you know what to expect, I don't want to keep you any longer. I'm really keen to show you the performance. So please put your headphones on, dim the lights, and join me for seeing how dance, music, and technology can bring to life human experience.
That was Feedback Loops, quite a powerful performance. And we will be sending you a link to a questionnaire. If you would like to fill it in, it will help us to let us know what you thought of this performance. So you will be receiving this link. So now we have Alina back. Hello, Alina. Are you there?
Hello, yes I am. Hello.
Yes,
Thank you so much for watching, everyone.
That was beautiful, of course. We will be discussing this performance and more during our Q&A, which is going to happen now. Then we also have Dan Wimperis with us on Zoom. He's a data manipulation and generative musical composer. So he's a musician, but also a data analyst and mathematician. He is musically self-taught, and he has been writing and recording instrumental music for years. He is also a data analyst and studies maths. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
Hi, and welcome to Science and the City 2020.
Thank you for having me.
Hello. And then we have Dr. Paulann Grech, who is a senior lecturer in mental health at the Faculty of Health Sciences. During the past years, Paulann has been working first as a practitioner within the state mental health services in Malta, and then as a mental health lecturer with the University of Malta. Hello, Paulann.
Hi.
Welcome. And here in the studio with me, I have Marie-Noëlle Lanson from the Richmond Foundation. She has a Bachelor of Arts in History of Art and Psychology and the Higher Diploma in Psychology. And you have been working at the Richmond Foundation for the past 5 years and currently working as a mental health recovery officer within the Community Support Services team. Fantastic. So welcome to our Q&A session. Alina, I'm going to start with you. So, where are you? Hello, Alina.
Hello.
So can you explain to us what we've just seen for all of us who are tuned in, and what have we just watched?
So you have watched a story that conveys people's lived experience with depression, epilepsy and multiple sclerosis and beyond, that was conveyed through a variety of mediums. So we've used dance, we've used music that came from the dancer's body, and we've also used the wearable device.
Fantastic. So elaborate a bit more on how you've brought these lived experiences of patients to life in this project. Give us a bit more details.
Yeah, of course. Some of the quotes come from the RADAR research study from the participants. So the participants in the depression study, for example, are being tracked for 2 years or even longer, and along the way they give us their feedback or share some of their stories. So we've been able to use some of those, but we've also had interviews with the patient advisory board for the research study, and we've involved them on multiple stages. So initially we had a chat with them to see exactly what symptoms they found useful to be represented as part of the piece, and then Dan will be able to elaborate a bit more on this, but we've chosen elements that were musically interesting, visually interesting, to be able to represent that through dance. And through the process we actually found out that some of the experiences felt universal. So actually I have a quote in here from one of the participants. So one of them says that he didn't know how it was going to be like tomorrow. This is a patient with MS, and to some extent we can all kind of relate to that, especially when we're not feeling particularly well. Maybe not in the same way, but we do have a form of understanding of that feeling to some degree. But there are also experiences that are harder to relate to. So, for example, he said that he felt that his limbs were being disconnected from his brain. That's exactly how he felt. So these are stories that inspired us to put the piece together at different stages. And then we've managed to show them what we've come up with in terms of dance, in terms of music. They give us feedback at that stage as well. And then when we had everything coming together, then we've asked them again to give us feedback.
Fantastic, thank you. We'll come back to you and we'll talk more about the performance that we've just seen. So let's move on to Dan. Dan, so the music that we've just heard in the performance, how was that created? So you have used this wearable device technology, and you coded that into that data into music. Elaborate a bit more about that, because this is fantastic, of course. Tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. So it's a Python script I wrote on my computer, which essentially brings in the data into my computer, converts that into MIDI, which is basically musical data for a computer, and takes every possible data point and spreads it out over a 10-octave keyboard. And it also uses electrodermal activity and also the heart rate to create control signals for the program. And then that's taken into my musical program, and then I limit that, because if you play notes on a 10-octave keyboard, it just sounds incredibly erratic. So in developing the program, it's limiting what the data can do and what instruments it can play and how it can manipulate those instruments live with the incoming data, and using those limitations to allow the data to generate the music, but also represent the conditions. So I didn't write a single musical note for this whole project, which was quite strange, really, to let it all be up to the data at the end. So when we're recording some performances, certain sections would sound amazing, and then other sections would sound not so good. And it just so happened that with the last performance we recorded before the UK went into second lockdown, it was like 2 days before, it just all lined up perfectly. So it was actually a really good take of the actual performance, because every single time it goes through, it'll choose different notes at different points, or there's also the heart rate is choosing the probability of notes being played as well. So the data will always generate a new piece of music every time it's performed. So yeah, and then it was just using the interviews we had with the patients and understanding their lived experience, their kind of the emotional and also the unseen side of living with these conditions, to basically tell the story of those conditions in each section. So using my musical language to do that. Yeah, so it's an interesting program because I would be sat in my room changing its parameters, wearing the device and just waving my arm about to see what it does. And then it wasn't until we actually got together with the dancer in the theatre and we could actually hear what it sounded like with her movement, because obviously she's moving a lot more than me just waving my arm. So yeah, it's a really interesting project to go through those development cycles.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Dan. So we've tackled, I mean, this performance tackles MS, depression, epilepsy, and we have Paulann. Let's talk a little bit about depression. Could you define depression for us and what it is and some of its symptoms for those suffering from this condition?
Yes, thanks. Well, obviously depression is one of the mental illnesses, and it's one of the most common mental illnesses. Sometimes when we speak about depression, when we use the word depression in our daily language, which tends to be quite a lot, we would actually be referring to sadness, which is very much different from depression, because depression incorporates a number of symptoms that could severely affect one's functioning, a person's quality of life. Yes, sadness is one of these symptoms, but it's not your normal, so as to use the word normal, kind of sadness that we tend to experience, which is very much normal from time to time. It is actually intense sadness. Feel what you may feel on a particularly sad day and multiply that by, I don't know, 20, 30 times. That would be a bit of the feeling of what clinical depression would feel like. That's the most common symptoms. There again, there are other possible symptoms in depression. So there could be lack of energy, which is one of the most common symptoms reported alongside with sadness. Lack of motivation to do anything practically that you usually do in your everyday life. Some people describe lacking the energy to literally get out of bed, and in fact we see many people who suffer from moderate to severe depression who are not even able to lift a finger, let alone carry out the normal activities of daily living. There is also something called Anedonia, which is when one loses, does not feel any pleasure associated with activities that usually would have brought pleasure to the individual. It could be sports, it could be listening to music, it could be performing a hobby. Suddenly all this is lost, and the person cannot really enjoy this activity anymore. Some people with clinical depression also report feeling really worthless, having this sense of guilt, particularly due to the thought that they may be a burden to others around them. And obviously this is quite a chain of thoughts, because I would feel as if I am a burden to others, I would feel worthless, and this would make my sadness and the associated feelings even worse. There are also other symptoms. There could be weight gain or weight loss over some time. There could be problems with sleeping, not managing to have a good night's sleep, or on the other hand, the person would be sleeping too much. There would be an increase in sleeping hours. There may be a lack of libido, a lack of sex drive. These are most of the common symptoms that we often encounter when we see someone with depression.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thank you, Paulann. Now I have a question for Marie-Noëlle. So how can we support people dealing with depression and other mental health conditions?
First of all, it is very important that people who are experiencing a mental health problem, that they do actually look for help. It is quite a common occurrence that people do not look for help because they fear the stigma that there is around mental health. So it is very important that we do reach out, that we do ask for help. And the earlier that we do ask for help, the better it is, the better there is a chance for a good prognosis. So it is very important. A lot of people usually fear asking for help because they fear what the treatment would be. And usually we associate mental illness with psychiatric medication, which people fear have a lot of side effects. And that usually, apart from the stigma, is usually another factor which keeps people away from looking for help. But there are a number of ways that someone can look for help. There are helplines which people can call, and they will be guided. For example, the Richmond Foundation, we have our own helpline where people can call us for guidance, for help, and we would guide them towards the necessary help. So that would be a very good first step. They could also speak to their general practitioner, their family doctor, and he would also be able to guide them towards the necessary help. There are many different types of support that one can get. There's medication that can help someone feel better. There's also therapy, which would involve a talking process where the person would be going through talk therapy with a therapist, a psychotherapist. There are also self-help groups, support groups, which one can look into. It's very easy to feel like you're alone in whatever you are feeling when you are experiencing mental illness or depression in this case. So support groups and self-help groups can also be helpful to help someone realize that they are not alone in this experience, that there are other people that they can relate to. It's also important that whenever someone reaches out to us, maybe not as professionals, but as human beings, as friends, as family, as colleagues, it is important to not dismiss what they are telling us. It's quite a common thing to hear in our daily lives when someone says, "Oh, I feel sad. I feel so sad. I feel like I don't have the energy to do anything," as Paulann was explaining. It's not a visible thing. Mental illness does not show, and it's very easy. You hear people telling someone, "It's okay. You don't have anything. Just, it will be all right. You have to help yourself a little bit." But we have to stop and ask ourselves a little bit. Would we ask someone with a broken leg to just get up and walk? Mm-hmm. Because we would not.
Yes, that's a very interesting point.
But that is something that is visible. So obviously we would not do it. So mental illness is not always as visible as one would think. You might have people who you would never ever know if they don't tell you that they have a mental health problem. So whenever someone opens up to us, it is important that we listen to them, that we show them that we are there for them and we empathize with them. We show them that we understand. And it is also important to guide them towards the necessary help that they need.
Thank you. Thanks, Marie-Noël. Those are very helpful hints. Back to you, Alina. So we've had some questions from our audience, and one of them was, how does neuroscience figure in all of this?
I wouldn't say that neuroscience is necessarily used as part of the development of the performance. We are using research from the RADAR study that's looking at how we can track and predict symptoms of depression. So the idea is to be able to find these digital biomarkers, what exactly you need to record from the phone or from the wearable device to be able to track symptoms. But I wouldn't say that neuroscience is used as part of the project as such, not necessarily, no.
We have a question maybe for Dan. How does, from an audience member as well, how does hearing the music generated change the patient's experience, if it does? What do you think?
So is that saying if a patient with one of the conditions watch this performance?
Yes, so if the patients watch it, that's right. Are they affected by the music that they hear, or what do you think from this project?
Hopefully it's a representation of their experience, but also it's based on patients that we spoke to. And one of the most interesting things we found from understanding these conditions is that every single person's experience with these conditions is quite personal and different. So, for example, the depression section, myself, I suffered from depression in the past. So it was a lot easier for me to represent that condition from the patient's understanding and also my experience with that condition. Whereas MS and epilepsy, it was speaking to a few patients that had that condition, but then those are only a few experiences. Every single person has a different connection to that condition. And it's also as well, because it's music, it's quite an abstract art form. So you play the same piece of music to 10 different people and you'll get 10 completely different reactions based on that person's relationship with music and how it makes them feel. So hopefully we've been able to represent the unseen symptoms of living with these conditions and how it is to go through that. For example, the MS section, the concept of the music with that is it starts with very strident and positive, almost life-affirming chords and drum beat, and then it slowly changes into uncertainty and only having one instrument at a time, because I wanted to represent how MS patients have a sense of uncertainty in where the condition is going to lead them throughout their life, because it's very, for people with certain types of MS, it's a slowly developing and changing condition for them. So I wanted to represent that aspect of the condition. So hopefully people can relate in ways to that musical piece.
Alina, we're trying to understand a bit more what we've watched, how it was created. So you had a dancer, and was this choreographed? Was it improvised on the music that was created? Can you explain the process of the actual performance?
Yeah, of course. So we actually started with developing the choreography itself based on the conversations that we had with patients. So like I said earlier, we wanted to select statements that relate to their experience, and we also wanted to hear them talking about their own experiences to be able to represent not necessarily everyone's experience, but some people's experience. So once we had all of those statements, then we were able to pick some of them that were relevant for the dance and relevant for the music, something that could be portrayed through these two mediums. And Anna Spink, who is the dancer and choreographer, has come up with the movements. And then we've gone back to the patients to see if they felt like that described their experience, if that spoke to them. And one of the first comments that we got back, and that's actually really interesting, was that someone said that they don't have an interest or experience with the arts, but somehow it really spoke to them, which was really important for us, because this is a performance that is for everyone. It's not necessarily for those who have a special interest in the arts or music or tech. It's really something that's aimed for everyone. So this was stage 2. We managed to develop the choreography, and then at the same time, Dan was working on, first of all, kind of getting the data. That was quite a long, strenuous process, because this device was really hard to get from the office. As you know, we've had 2 lockdowns here in the UK, so we had to wait until the first one finished so that we can actually go into the offices, get the device, and then our software developers helped us. Because, I mean, we can see this device and we can see the data on the app, but how do you extract that? I can't tell you too much about that, but we have a whole team dedicated for that, and they managed to develop an app that would extract the data, and then the data went to Dan, and then Dan did his magic on it, and the process that he's just explained of transforming all of that into music. And then we went through a lot of back and forth to kind of see how we can shape the story, what was too much information to present, how we can find a common thread across these 3 different conditions. Because, like I said, some of the experiences feel quite universal, but some of them seem quite particular. So to bring all these 3 conditions together, we had to find a way that would make it speak to people. I mean, I don't know if we've achieved that, but we can only hope.
Yes. Okay, so we have a question from the audience. Perhaps Paulann can help us with this. So do you think that music gives a voice to the conditions, gives them a kind of visibility? Visibility is very important for these conditions. This is what the audience is saying. What do you think? What is the relation between music and perhaps mental health? Paulann?
Yes, in fact, one of the therapeutic aspects of mental health is to give people a voice. We know that as much as possible, encouraging people to speak up about their experience of mental illness is both educational on its own, because it obviously educates the public about the symptoms of these mental illnesses. But it is also therapeutic for the person. Now all of us are different to each other, and not everyone would be comfortable to use the same medium in order to speak out about their conditions. And some may feel comfortable with writing about their experience. Others would feel comfortable with drawing, for instance, using drawings and paintings in order to demonstrate these symptoms. Then again, some may be more comfortable using music as a kind of voice to speak about the mental illness. In addition to that, we also often incorporate music in therapy. There is what we call music therapy. There are techniques such as lyrics analysis, for instance, which is quite commonly used as well. And music, even if it's not, even if it is not used as a strict therapy on its own, it can still form the base of some activities in therapeutic settings. And so, yes, definitely, music is a very powerful means of allowing people to convey their emotions. I think we can all identify with that, as we know, and as my colleagues have described before me. Music can alter emotions. Music can alter feelings. It can literally change the way you are thinking and feeling at any particular moment. It can make you feel happier. It can make you feel a bit more sad, or perhaps it can prompt you into moving into a more reflective mood. And so all of this shows that it it is a very powerful source that we can exploit, if I can use the word exploit, during the recovery journeys of individuals who are experiencing mental illnesses.
Thank you. Thank you, Paulann. Marie-Noëlle, so from your experience, you work with mental health patients and you offer services. What is the relation of that to the arts, maybe music, dance, or how do you look at this, at how the arts perhaps help mental health patients?
Yes, in fact, we at Richmond we also have an art group for our clients that we hold once a month, and they are free to attend. And basically, we find that the arts are a very powerful tool that we can use to help people express what they are feeling. Sometimes you would get emotions that people would be feeling that they would not know how to put into words, that they would not know how to articulate. So I very much like to use the arts in my work with clients. Obviously, you have to pick the right one, as Paulann was saying, with each and every client. Not each and everyone will respond the same to every single one of the arts. So one might be more inclined to use music, another one might be more inclined to use painting or drawing, another one might be more comfortable with writing. I actually had one of my clients who used to write poems. And that would be the way that this person would express themselves. So yes, the arts are very much a powerful tool that we can use with clients.
Okay, all right. Back to Alina. Alina, so you are a researcher in various different sectors, psychiatry, psychology, and neuroscience. So how did this project, how did you encounter these specific interests in this project, and what made you decide to actually work on this for this year's edition of Science in the City, and how did it come about slowly from your interest, from the people you've met maybe in your field?
I've done a few different public engagement events for the RADAR project, starting with stands for the New Scientist Live, so different science fairs where you get different people from kids to general audience, and then we've been to the European Commission as well. We've also done a short animated film to show the aims of the study, but a lot of the time something that I noticed at these public engagement events is that people just find it quite hard to express in words what is happening exactly with them, especially if they're going through these conditions. So I thought that the answer to such a big question can't necessarily fit into one medium. So I thought that it might be at the intersection of different mediums. In fact, it's my opinion that the answer to big questions is at the intersection of different mediums. So then I thought, okay, so we have time-proven ways to express feelings and thoughts, music and dance, but then the study is using almost another sense, the wearable device. So then I tried to get my head around combining all of them to see how we can tell a more comprehensive story, to express things that can't be expressed into words. So then I contacted Anna, and then Dan as well was very keen to work with us. He's also worked with us on the short animation. So it was kind of a bit of a build-up. We didn't really go straight into, oh, let's do this performance. We've tried different forms of public engagement before to engage the public with the research study and raise awareness of these conditions.
Thanks, Alina. So Dan, you are both an artist and a scientist, so you combine your love of music with your love of maths. Do you do that all the time, or was it specifically for this project? And how do you manage to make the two things meet?
I feel like I've got two sides of my brain, the musical, creative, and the logical, like maths side, and that kind of keeps me at a good balance. Like, studying maths and doing music, it just keeps me at a good balance. So this project was really the perfect opportunity to kind of collide those two worlds and see what would come out of it, because they're all languages, music and maths. You know, you learn about symbols, you learn about equations and all that in maths, and how to speak that language and how to communicate a concept or logic through mathematical communication. It's the same with music. It's a language that you learn when you're a kid, I think. Like, you know, when you're a baby, you're growing up and you're learning how to speak because you're taking in all this auditory information and learning how to talk. And I think that's what happens with music as well. Because when you're a kid, you know, the music your parents listen to will give you that language to speak to the world. So yeah, it's just different languages. You know, you can communicate different things with maths and you can communicate different things with music. And yeah, I think it's important to kind of entertain those different areas of the mind and to kind of keep yourself busy with different ways of seeing the world, different ways of expressing. Because like Paulann was saying earlier, there's things that can be said with music that you can't say with words. And, you know, that this was a great opportunity to kind of attempt to do that. So yeah, I hope it went well. But yeah, it's just different languages, different interests of mine, just hobbies I've spent ages doing.
So this, how does the dancer feel while dancing? What is going through her mind? Does anyone have an answer for that? It's a very difficult question, actually.
We're going to find out tomorrow, actually, because Anna is going to be on the panel. So if anyone would like to join the event again, then you'll be able to meet Anna as well.
Fantastic. So Anna, as you mentioned before, is the choreographer and the dancer, right?
Yes.
Yes. And what time is that? Let's set an appointment for those who would like to tune in again. And what time will that be?
I think it's maybe a bit later than today.
We will let them. Okay, I don't have the program for tomorrow. I don't know it by heart, but we will let you know, and then you can tune in and see what Anna, the dancer and choreographer, has to say. So,
8:25 tomorrow, Malta time.
Yes. Okay. So, Paulann, you have watched the performance. How did you feel watching it? What were your thoughts as a professional working in this field?
Yes, my initial thoughts were that it is very moving, and it prompted me to move into a reflective mood. It wasn't quite what I expected, to be honest, but there again, I didn't quite know what to expect. So it was surprising. I compared it to meditation music, and first that was one of the very first things that struck a chord. We often listen to these guided meditation videos, these deep breathing exercises videos, and it has those kind of tones relating to it. I think it was a very clever combination of different chords and different paces in order to instill different feelings. Really, it was, if I could use two words to describe it, it would be deep and emotional. Mm-hmm. So I think that it probably reached the aim that it was intended to reach.
What do you think, Alina? Is that what you intended this to be?
Yes, to some extent it is, but also we wanted to let audiences develop their own meanings based on their own perceptions. So to a large extent, we wanted to leave it open to interpretation, hence the open question at the end. But I guess we also wanted people to learn something new about mental and physical health and maybe be inspired to practice self-care and empathy, engage with research, and be inspired by the idea of having an interdisciplinary collaboration, maybe start their own interdisciplinary collaboration, because we clearly really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have another question from the audience. I don't know, maybe Dan can answer this. So in the performance, how is the body's data transferred to the device? What is the device actually measuring? Anyone has an answer to that?
The device measures accelerometer data. So you've got X, Y, and Z values.
Okay.
Accelerometers. And
the non-scientific people among us might
so
elaborate a bit on that.
X, Y, Z.
Fantastic.
So
yes,
those
that
three
makes
dimensions, they're choosing which note to play at any one time. So those three channels are sent to different instruments, and then at any point when a note is due to play, it'll look at that data and go, okay, I'm going to play that note on the keyboard, I'm going to play that note on the keyboard. And then the heart rate, so the graph you see on a heart rate monitor, that data is choosing how hard to hit the note on a piano, and it's also choosing the probability of a note that will play. So throughout the piece, you have a set of times that notes will play, but it will only get through a certain probability amount of times. And then the electric dermal activity, so the sweat activity, that's actually quite a gradually moving piece of data, because the heart rate monitor is very fast. So if I plug that into the sound of a instrument, it would be quite erratic. So the slow-moving sweat, the electric dermal activity, that's changing how the instrument sounds at any time during the performance. So it's those three pieces of data that go into my project, and that's how the music's created. And that's why it's different each time, because you might get a different sounding instrument, or you might get a note played one time and a note not played the next. Yeah, that's what it's doing.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've come towards the end. Does anyone want to add something about what we've just seen and about the project? Any final comments? Alina?
Nothing from me, really. Just thank you so much for watching, and I would love to hear your opinions of what you've just watched, your reactions. There is also an evaluation form. I'm not sure what's the best way to present that, but we would love to hear your opinion, whether you enjoyed it, whether you didn't enjoy it. We really want to see if we've managed to achieve our aims and how we can improve. So yeah, please take the time. It shouldn't take too long. It should be 2-3 minutes to complete this. It was going to be incredibly helpful for us.
And I'm sure the participants as well feel like that this was a very important project for them. We saw all the comments during the performance, Alina. So what do they think about this?
Well, we don't know as yet, because we haven't disseminated this with all participants.
So this is the premiere.
I don't know if someone's logged in to watch us tonight. I hope so. But it would be great to hear everyone's opinions of what they've just watched, because the performance is aimed at everyone.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, I think we can conclude here. Thank you all. Thank you, Alina Ivan. Thank you, Dan Wimperis. Thank you, Dr. Paulann Grech. And thank you, Marie-Noëlle Lanson, who's here with me.